Welcome to Revenge Return, where love is never simple, revenge is never accidental, and every story unfolds with secrets, betrayal, and emotional twists you won't see coming. This is where the story begins. The text message arrived at 9:47 a.m. on a Thursday in late October. Open house this weekend at the family estate. Finally moving forward with the sale. Big changes coming, house with garden, money bag. I stared at my phone in the break room at Providence Hospital in Boston, where I'd been working as a cardiothoracic surgeon for 6 years. The message was from my brother Kevin, sent to a family group chat that included our mother, 2 cousins, and an aunt. Several people had already responded with congratulations and heart emojis. The family estate Kevin was selling, without asking me, was the 1870s Victorian in Salem, Massachusetts that our great-great-grandfather had built. The house I'd inherited solely when our father died 3 years ago, leaving it to me with explicit instructions in his will that it remain in my care. I left the break room and called Kevin. Straight to voicemail. I tried again. Same result. I pulled up Zillow on my phone. There it was, 847 Washington Street, Salem. Listed 2 days ago for $1.2 million. Stunning Victorian estate, original details, prime location, rare opportunity. 32 photos showing every room of my house. Rooms I'd carefully restored over the past 3 years. Furniture I'd selected, renovations I'd funded. The listing agent was someone named Brandon Marshall with Coastal Properties. I called the number on the listing. Marshall Properties, this is Brandon. This is Dr. Nina Chin, I said, keeping my voice level. You have a listing for 847 Washington Street in Salem. I need to know who authorized that listing. The owners did, Brandon said cheerfully. Kevin Chin and family. We're doing an open house Sunday 1 to 4. Would you like to schedule a private showing? I'm the sole owner of that property, I said. Kevin Chin has no legal authority to sell it. Pause. Ma'am, I have signed listing documents from multiple family members claiming joint ownership. Those documents are fraudulent, I interrupted. I inherited the property 3 years ago. I'm the only person on the deed. I want that listing removed immediately. I can't just remove a listing based on a phone call, Brandon said, his tone shifting from cheerful to defensive. If there's an ownership dispute, you'll need to provide documentation to our legal department. I'll provide documentation to everyone, I said. Starting with the title company and the county recorder's office. Remove the listing. I hung up and called my attorney, Patricia Wu, who I'd kept on retainer since Dad's estate had settled. Specifically because I'd suspected something like this might eventually happen. Nina, Patricia answered. What's wrong? Kevin listed my house for sale without my permission. He's forged ownership documents. I need this stopped now. Send me the listing link, Patricia said. I could hear her already typing. I'll contact the brokerage and the title company immediately. Do not engage with your brother directly. Let me handle this legally. 20 minutes later, Patricia called back. Nina, this is worse than we thought. I pulled the title history. Kevin has been filing fraudulent documents with the county recorder for 10 years. Quitclaim deeds, power of attorney forms, beneficiary designations. He's created a paper trail suggesting shared ownership that doesn't legally exist. 10 years? I asked. How is that possible? County recorders file documents that are submitted properly. They don't verify the accuracy of every claim unless someone challenges them. Kevin has been systematically filing false documents since your father was still alive, probably planning for exactly this moment. My hands were shaking. What do we do? I'm requesting an emergency hearing with the county recorder and the title company. We'll need to prove the forgeries and get them removed from the record. I'm also contacting the district attorney's office. This is fraud, Nina. Criminal fraud. The open house happened anyway that Sunday. Patricia had filed injunctions, sent cease and desist letters, and contacted everyone involved, but the wheels of bureaucracy moved slowly. By Sunday afternoon, 43 people had toured my house, guided by Kevin, who'd apparently spent the weekend staging it like he owned it. I drove to Salem and parked across the street. Watched strangers walk through the front door, imagining themselves living in my home. Kevin stood on the porch, shaking hands, playing the gracious seller. At 3:47 p.m., a black Mercedes pulled up. 2 people emerged. A woman in her 60s carrying a leather portfolio and a younger man with a tablet. They didn't look like house hunters. They looked like investigators. They walked directly to Kevin. The woman showed identification. Kevin's confident smile faltered. They talked for several minutes. I couldn't hear the conversation, but I watched Kevin's body language shift from welcoming to defensive to panicked. The open house ended abruptly. Kevin ushered the remaining visitors out, claiming a scheduling conflict. The two investigators went inside with him and didn't emerge for 40 minutes. My phone rang. Pisha. The title company sent investigators, she said. They found extensive evidence of forgery. Kevin's been creating false documents for a decade. Quit-claim deeds moving portions of ownership to himself, fake power of attorney forms, even a forged will from your father supposedly leaving the property to multiple heirs. How did he think he'd get away with this? I asked. People get away with it all the time, Patricia said. Unless someone challenges the documents, they sit in county records looking legitimate. Most families never check title histories. Kevin was counting on you not knowing the extent of what he'd done. The investigation accelerated rapidly. The Essex County Recorder's Office pulled every document Kevin had filed in the past decade. 19 fraudulent filings, all claiming to transfer portions of my property to himself, our mother, our cousins. Each document bore forged signatures. Mine, my father's, even my deceased grandmother's. Kevin had been building a case for shared ownership for years, waiting for the right moment to cash out. The moment had arrived when property values in Salem hit record highs and he'd accumulated $180,000 in personal debt, credit cards, a failed restaurant investment, back taxes. The DA's office charged him with 19 counts of forgery, attempted real estate fraud and identity theft. The evidence was overwhelming. Signature analysis showed clear forgery, notary stamps were fake, and several documents were supposedly signed by my father after his death. Kevin's defense attorney tried to portray it as a family misunderstanding about inheritance. But the will was clear. I was sole beneficiary of the property. The deed was clear, only my name. The only documents suggesting otherwise were the ones Kevin had forged. The preliminary hearing was in February. Kevin showed up in a suit I'd never seen, looking younger and more vulnerable than his 36 years. His attorney presented a narrative about family expectations, shared memories of the house, belief that inheritance should be divided equally. The prosecutor presented handwriting analysis, testimony from notaries who'd never witnessed the documents bearing their stamps, and timeline evidence showing documents were filed claiming to be signed by my father weeks after his death. The judge took 15 minutes to rule, sufficient evidence for trial. Kevin was released on $25,000 bail with conditions preventing him from approaching my property or contacting me directly. My mother called that evening. First time we'd spoken in 2 months. You're sending your brother to prison, she said. No greeting, no preamble. Kevin sent himself to prison, I replied, by committing fraud for 10 years. He thought the house should belong to all of us. Your father would have wanted that. Dad's will explicitly left it to me, I interrupted. Not to all of us. To me. Because I was the one who spent every summer helping him restore it. The one who researched Victorian architecture with him. The one who understood why that house mattered. So Kevin deserves prison because he wasn't interested in old houses? Mom's voice rose. He's your brother, Nina. Family. Family doesn't forge my signature on legal documents, I said. Family doesn't commit felony fraud. Kevin did this to himself. She hung up. Kevin's trial was scheduled for May, but he accepted a plea deal in April. Pleaded guilty to attempted fraud and forgery in exchange for reduced charges. Sentenced to 18 months in county jail, 3 years probation, $45,000 in restitution to cover my legal fees and the title company's investigative costs. The county recorder's office systematically removed every fraudulent document Kevin had filed. My property title was cleared, showing what it had always been. Sole ownership, Nina Chen, inherited August 2021. I haven't spoken to Kevin since the preliminary hearing. He sent one letter from jail 3 months into his sentence. Long, rambling, alternating between apology and justification. I really thought we'd split the money, he wrote. I didn't think you'd be this vindictive. I didn't respond. My mother made one more attempt at reconciliation, suggesting family therapy once Kevin was released. I declined. Some relationships end not because of one betrayal but because that betrayal reveals what was always there. A fundamental belief that my assets were negotiable, my inheritance was debatable, my father's explicit wishes were optional. Kevin got out last month. Moved to New Hampshire, according to his probation officer who contacted me as required by the restraining order. He's working construction, living with a friend, forbidden from having any contact with me for 3 years. I still own the Victorian. Still live in it on weekends, commuting from Boston. Still maintain the careful restorations my father and I worked on together. The original crown molding, the hand-carved banisters, the stained glass windows we spent 2 summers repairing. Sometimes I walk through the rooms and think about Kevin giving tours to strangers, selling my house out from under me while I was in surgery saving lives. About the 10 years of systematic forgery, the careful planning, the moment he thought he'd finally won. The county records found the decade of forgeries because Patricia knew to look. Because I'd hired competent legal help. Because the title company did their job properly. Some people call me unforgiving for not reconciling with Kevin. Mom certainly does in the occasional emails I don't respond to. But I call it protecting what my father gave me. Not just a house but the explicit trust that I'd preserve it properly. That I wouldn't let it be stolen or sold or divided among people who saw it as nothing more than a real estate asset. Kevin chose fraud over honesty. He chose theft over conversation. He chose a decade of systematic deception over simply accepting that some inheritances aren't meant to be shared. The property attorney found what Kevin spent 10 years trying to hide. That every document claiming he owned my house was a lie. And that truth saved what my father worked his whole life to build. That's the ending we both earned.